Hello, and thanks for joining us today for Mayor Emanuel's first ever live Facebook town hall. To give you a sense of how this came together, over the past week, you've submitted hundreds of questions and cast thousands of votes to help us decide what questions are going to be asked here today. With us, we have Tony Sculfield and Nina Chantele from WGCI who are going to help us out. So, Nina, want to take it away?
Well, Mayor Emanuel, we want to thank you for having us, and this is an honor, and no mayor's ever done this, so why are you doing this?
So I can spend more time with you, Nina.
Well, thank you. That's a great answer. Great start.
Here's the reason I'm doing this. First of all, as I understand it, we've had over 500 questions submitted, over 8,600 votes. I don't know how many people will participate, but that we know today. It's a testament to folks in the city of Chicago, their love and passion for their city, which is what gives us the strength to do what we got to do for the city's future. And when I was in Congress, I used to do this thing called Congress on Your Corner, and I would do office hours at the grocery store. And I actually submitted the Elder Justice Act because of a story a woman told me about what happened to her father at a nursing home, which we eventually passed, and also the simplification of the FASA student aid form came from a fireman telling me about the troubles he and his wife went through, Pat Kehoe, in fact, to simplify, to basically fill out that form. Now, you're not going to solve world peace, but you are going to get an idea in this process that is going to be a germination of an idea to maybe help solve something that other people are experiencing. And I think I have a responsibility as a steward of the city on behalf of the public that voted to stay in touch with them. We'll agree on a lot of things. I'll offer them ideas that sometimes will be controversial, but it gives us to have that ongoing conversation that happens in a campaign, but that when you govern, you lose, and I want to stay in touch because I think that conversation is an important one to continue.
Wow, absolutely
awesome. So I want to thank you guys for doing this. I want to thank Kennedy King for hosting this. I want to thank everybody for participating.
All right, let's get it started, okay, Mr. Mayor? Here we go. As you can imagine, two of the hottest categories were jobs and the economy. A lot of people out of work.
That's good because now we're both in sync since those are my two hot categories too.
Okay, so let's get it started with a video from UV.
Hello, my name is UV. I'm from Hermosa. My question is, what are you going to be doing to help people find jobs in Chicago?
Well, UV, and to all the others who voted for her question, which the truth is, it's everybody. Because in the end of the day, whether it's fixing schools, bringing a level of safety to our streets, dealing with the fiscal issues in the city government, or the transportation system, or urban agriculture, it's all, or even the food desert issue. To me, every one of these add up to, in the end of the day, are we creating an environment where we can create jobs from small businesses to large who want to invest, and a place where families can raise their children. In the end of the day, that's what all these decisions really are part of a puzzle, which is about economic growth and jobs. Now, I have contacted and been in contact with General Electric, which is going to put another 1,000 jobs here in the city. Motorola, 400. United, that's based here, has agreed to put their operations center, 1,300 jobs here. We announced in the last 2 days in the field of healthcare, Allscripts, 300 jobs in the health IT, which is a high-end part where I want to grow. We have the largest company, Allscripts, in the health IT space in the country, and that's a growing field. As well as Walgreens, 300 in the neighborhood, and now 300 in their downtown operation, which is the first time they're really going to grow it in the e-commerce. Those are some of the things that I've participated in. But in addition to that, I really do believe, here's Kennedy College, King College. The decisions we make, which we're going to have a new head of the system here, we have a new chancellor, we have a whole new board, and we also have new heads of each of the entities. How Kennedy King is focused, what we achieve for the student body here will help me as a mayor make sure that I can attract companies because they say, you know what, that's a good, trained, educated workforce. We have strengths as a city, and I'll try to be quick because I know we got questions. We're centrally located. You can get anywhere in the country, the world, from Chicago because of O'Hare. We lead in certain areas, but the most important thing we have to lead in the most important is not pharmaceutical space, healthcare space. That's significant. Transportation. We have to lead with the best trained, best educated workforce. We have that, and Chicago will be #1, and that's my goal.
Well, we have another question out of Chicago. It's about alderman pay. Don't you think?
It's from an alderman.
Let me get I don't think so.
Well, this question is, don't you think it is time for salary reform for the part-time job of alderman? Do we really need 50?
Well, that's both pay and the size, but thank you. Whoever asked that, let me ask a question. How many votes did that question get?
That I don't know.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say what the aldermen have done on their behalf. We have now the fewest committees in the city council since 1950. We also cut the city council budget by 10%. I cut my budget in the mayor's office by 10%. So that's just a standard. There also been some ethics reform I implemented through executive orders, and they actually voted on rule changes on ethics reform. Now, as it relates to the size of the city council and it relates to the pay, the aldermen have made some changes, and they've done it to the budget of the city council where they get their funding. Now, I saw that there's not only this question, there was a report out today about cutting the city council in half. We've taken the first steps, which I think are the steps that are important, which is to shrink the committees and focus them on the very priorities that help, to the first question, us grow as an economy. What's our quality of life? What's our safety on the streets? What are we doing in our educational system? How are we putting our fiscal house, our budget, in order? Before you get into fighting about the size of the city council, it's not the size of it, it's what it's doing that is important to me. That's where I'm focused. And I think too much, and I understand the desire to shrink it, I get the sentiment. But the real test to me, and the first priority test, is not about the size, it's about the scope and the focus. And as long as it's focused on what makes the city better, then it's doing its job.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I know we're getting lots of questions, Kevin, online as well.
We are.
What do you have coming in?
So a few folks, and AHC wants to know the situation with Alderman Burke's bodyguards and if we are going to see any reduction.
Okay. Wow, these are great. Let me say this to that question. In the first month, I have put 650 officers from clerical, administrative, in specialized units into our communities. In fact, when I came in here, Commander Crothers, I want to tell one little anecdote and I'll get right to the question. No, but it's very important. I announced with Comcast, about 2 weeks earlier, I had announced the first of the 650. 8 districts were going to get 400 plus police officers. That's where 2/3 of all crimes occur in the city in these 8 districts out of 25. So we had just left the library, and I announced this Comcast investment in the digital divide, which is part of what even this community college deals with. We were on our way to Lindblom Math and Science. And I said, are we on time? They said, no, we're ahead of schedule. So I said, we'll drop off at the 7th. I want to go see the commander. So I walked in. 2 weeks earlier, I had given the police officers. So Commander Crothers met me. Just happened to see, they notified him I was coming. And I said, walk me through. I said, we just gave you 58 officers. 12% of the decision we had made to that point, you have 1 precinct out of 25. What are you doing? And he walked through CTA, he walked through the empty residential facilities, the parties that happen in those areas, and said, that's my strategy. I said, okay, and I told him, this is about now 3 weeks ago, I'll be watching. Because we as a city have now committed to your leadership 12% of what we had decided to that point. Now we're at 650 in total. I just saw him on the way in. He says, you'll like the numbers you're going to see. I said, you know I'm watching.
Yeah, you pulled to meet the parents.
That's one of these. Like, how old are your kids? I got a 14 and 12. I said, are we together here? But I also have announced because while you have the police now finally working in the community and you have a commander who can be held accountable because they have the resources, we have to get kids off the street in productive environments. Now, I'm going to deal with the 4 officers related to Alderman Burke. That's an issue, and I have the police superintendent, counsel's office looking at it. But I will not take my eye off the ball as it relates to what Commander Crothers is doing here in the 7th District with 58 officers. I will not take my eye off the ball as it relates to what happens to the kids in Woodlawn, Englewood, Little Village, and Garfield Park, where we now have a special summer program to see if the juvenile crime during the summer is down in those communities versus other communities. That, to me, is what the city hired me to do. They also hired, make sure, unlike past, and right before I left, I called the commander about it. You know, knock on wood, we haven't had any incidents in Chicago at our festivals right now. Taste of Chicago. Now we're going into the weekend, so I said, knock on wood, but to date, and I said, that's compared to where we were last year. So the question is, that's true for you, Nina, it's true for you, Tony, it's true for me, how you spend your day. In the first 42 days, I spent it about putting our fiscal house in order, getting our schools focused on what they should be doing, making sure we had our police officers in our communities, working with neighbors and neighborhoods and communities, getting our kids off the streets in productive area. I have the right people dealing with the 4 officers, and I will await their recommendations and then deal with it appropriately. But I will not take my eye off of what I think people need me to focus on. And I think we're going to get to it. It's just not going to get ahead of, those 4 officers don't get ahead of what's going on in Englewood. Those 4 officers don't get ahead of what goes on for the kids in Woodlawn.
So you're focused.
I have that laser-like capacity.
All right, Mr. Mayor, our next question comes from Amanda via Facebook, and it's about furloughs. Mr. Mayor, my husband has been a construction laborer for the city for 20 years. The required furlough days and unpaid holidays have had a devastating effect on middle-class families in neighborhoods such as mine.
Well, first of all, Amanda, if you're watching, you, like others, have told me in the campaign how you felt about furlough and the furlough day and the process. It has not worked for the city's workforce morale, as your question indicated, and it hasn't been the panacea financially that it was supposed to set up. So at the end of today, furloughs will no longer be part of the city process. It's number one. It's gone. Now, the need to resolve a $30 million hole is not. But I know what the workforce wants, and I'm ready to make that happen. Not just for the workforce of works, although I want their morale up. They serve the public. But I have also served the public, which is I got to eliminate a $30 million hole. Now, what is, and everybody should understand this, what is strange, weird, or it is what it is. The furloughs end on June 30th, midnight tonight. They will not be part of the city economic field, for lack of a better way of saying it, or economic tool in its toolbox. But the budget that was passed in 2011, that I was not a party to, assumes furlough savings all the way to the end of the year of $30 million, even though the contract ends on June 30th. I did not create that discrepancy, but I'll fix it.
Nice.
Now, I've identified a series of savings. I need organized labor. Maybe her husband is a member in the trades or whatever. I think you said that, right? Amanda said that?
Yeah, construction worker.
Correct, sorry. She's in the trades. I need organized labor to be my partner, and I want them to be their partner, and they want to be that partner. So I want everybody to hear that. If they agree to certain, and I've given them about $20 million worth of savings. If they agree to about 10, 12 million of those, and they don't have to have just those. They could have their own ideas. I said that. But that is the way we will achieve and close that $30 million. I have my own ideas that don't require their working with me, and I'm going to make those as part of the solution. But I need them to get all the way there. If we can't, or they can give me some of it, then I can avoid, not just to Amanda and her family, but Amanda in particular, I can avoid making 625 cuts, elimination of jobs. I don't want to do that. The first question was about jobs.
Right.
So behind those 625 is a person, a family, a child, relying on that breadwinner. And so my view is it didn't work. People felt like they were working. They gave up their vacation days. They gave up part of their work week. It didn't work for the city. That said, a discrepancy between the end of the year, fiscal year, and June 30th doesn't work for the city either. So I'll solve it. I'll solve it with Amanda in mind and her husband, and maybe they have children. I don't want to do this. That's why it's the last thing of all the options, the last option, the one I don't want to do. And I want labor, and labor will be and when I say that, I mean organized labor and the leaders of the unions, to be my partner, my ally in solving this. But they have to be flexible, because what I say when I say workplace reforms and efficiency, we have certain rules in place that also cost the city money unnecessarily. And if they would reform those, agree to some of them, we don't have to let, and I'm not saying Amanda's husband, I don't know her, I don't want to know Amanda's last name. Her husband doesn't have to lose a job. And you know what's worse than losing, giving back on the furlough days or having a furlough day is losing a job. And we don't have to do this. We can balance our budget and keep those 625 people employed. And I want the leaders of organized labor to be my ally in helping solve. And I said, I'll make certain decisions. My door is always open. They know my phone number, they know my email. And if all we can agree on is $3 million of the remaining 12, that's $3 million in savings that I then don't have to eliminate X amount of jobs.
Mayor Emanuel, let's stay on the subject of jobs. We did take some questions out to the streets of Chicago, and we're talking about casino. So this question comes via video.
Okay.
My name is Les Walton. I live in Hyde Park, and I have a question for the mayor, Rahm Emanuel. I'm in favor of the casino bill, and I would like to know how soon will it be initiated?
Well, to Les and everybody else who voted on that question, I want to, well, his first question, how vote, it's been passed. It has not been sent to the governor. The governor has some concerns, which I think are legitimate to ask. And I say they're legitimate because I had questions before I threw my weight behind this. I do not come to the issue of a Chicago casino with enthusiasm. I came to it and said, can we afford as a city to lose $20 million to $25 million a month to Hammond, Indiana? And I said, no. Can we afford to lose the jobs that go with that? And the answer is no. I also believe, and the reason I finally went for this is not only could we not afford those two, as I used to say in the campaign, we have a casino, Chicago casino, it's just in Hammond, Indiana.
Right.
And I'm tired of that. Whatever revenue we would generate from it, I would only use for our roads, our bridges, our water system, our mass transit system, our schools, our broadband build out, so we stay competitive economically. What I don't want to do is do what happened in the parking meter deal, where it just went into the general operating and paid bills. So if we did it, and the governor does sign it, and we build it, I'm going to use it to create jobs and keep Chicago competitively economic, from an economic standpoint. And that means, like when GE, one of the weird things, why do you think GE picked Chicago over another city? They had a great trained workforce that it was easier for them to get from where they live to where they work. And so if I invest in the mass transit, or our buses, CTA buses, or bike lanes, or other facilities, we will then stay competitive from an economic standpoint and use the revenue then from the casino to do that. So it's not just revenue, it's a job creator in addition to the jobs that are at the casino itself. And that's the decision why I threw my lot behind it. And I hope the governor, when he looks at the pluses and minuses, and that's a legitimate thing to do, we'll see, I think, the equities outweigh some of the downsides.
Thank you, Mayor Emanuel. Also, we want to talk about small business owners. This is another video that has come questions out of the streets of Chicago for small business owners. Let's take a look.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. My name is Nick, and I'm a small businessman in Wicker Park, and I live in Logan Square, and a lifetime resident of Chicago. And my question is, how will you stimulate the economy and the business atmosphere for small businessmen? because my experience is that city costs constantly go up, and city services constantly are cut back, and it's putting lots of people out of business.
You know, that is sometimes, outside of Amanda's question, the hardest thing to hear, in the sense that, you know, look, we are looking at a number of things to reduce the burden from a city perspective on small businesses, whether that's from the licensing standpoint to the inspection standpoint. A lot of people in small business, I don't know what Nick was specifically saying, but I've heard enough from small businesses owners that, you know, we have 9 different departments do separate inspections. So that means when whoever shows up, you have to pull people off of work to deal with our inspectors. There's got to be another way to deal with that, so we're not a burden on them. We have a service to provide in the sense of assuring certain things are done right from a public safety standpoint, but it can't be such a burden that it's actually debilitating to the businesses. That was one part of what he said. The other part was on the financing. The truth is, there's plenty of money in our banks. There's plenty of facilities through the Small Business Loan Administration, and maybe we need to do some streamlining there as well to make sure our small businesses have access to that type of resource. So there's kind of 2 parts to Nick's question. And what's interesting, while I have worked on the GE and some of the other companies, the biggest job gains we'll have over the years are the companies that are already here, rather than recruiting new companies, is the companies already here. And making sure they have, A, not a burdensome environment, B, one of the things I want to eliminate is the head tax. So companies with more than 100 employees don't pay for hiring people. Why? That's kind of an inverse logic to that.
Right.
If you hire, you get penalized. The other thing what we're doing is we're going to, for a small business, and I don't know if I don't know anything about Nick's company, is we're going to reform the procurement process for the city of Chicago. One of the largest purchaser of goods and service in the city is the city itself. And if we streamline it, simplify it, rather than being rigged for only the big companies, small and medium-sized businesses will have a chance to bid on the business that the city is asking for bids on.
Great. All right, our next question is about transportation and public space, and it comes from Will in Bucktown. He wants to know what's happening with transit improvements, building more parks, creating more integrated green space, and overall quality of life improvements. What will we see in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, etc.? He wants a whole year plan.
Well, first of all, Will, if you are actually watching on this, I want you to see my transition report. It has a first 100 days, a first year, as well as a first term agenda. Transportation and public space. Let me just make one kind of reference point. While there's no doubt we think of public space in the sense of parks, I mean, I think that's what he was talking about. First of all, Chicago, through the Port Authority, as a city, our park district, just, I don't know if I use the word acquire, but we went from the Port Authority over to the park district, 600 acres of prairie nature land. One of the largest, I think, land deemings to the park district in the history. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to make at least in my view, a significant announcement as it relates to our rivers. I believe that the rivers are the next recreational frontier of the city of Chicago. And a major investment in making the riverfront, which runs through all our neighborhoods throughout the city, the recreational frontier capacity rather than the afterthought it has been. We have a beautiful lake. It's a great parks, beaches, running paths, etc. We've not thought of that except for in little bites of the river that way, and yet that runs through our neighborhoods. And so I'll be making an announcement of trying to see the river and develop the river with it in mind as the next recreational frontier of the city.
Mayor Rahm
But
Emanuel.
I left Will's transportation piece out. On a safety side, I'll just say this, that Forrest Claypool, Gabe Klein, at least on Forrest on the CTA, has committed to more lights for safety purposes, but we'll be making other announcements as it relates to services, improvements along the way.
I'm glad you brought up safety because we have a question about safe streets, and that also comes via video. So let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm from Home Park. I want to ask the mayor what is he going to do about gang-related loitering and drug activity.
I'm sorry, I was writing something.
Maria.
Maria, okay. Look, I don't want to go through what we've done to date, but let's just take one thing on. I've talked about the 650 officers we moved into the neighborhoods, about making sure our kids don't fall victim this summer by making sure we have enough activities so they can find a safe, adult supervised, either in the athletic, artistic, or academic. On gangs, she may probably know about the Maniacs gang that in a, I don't know what, shootout, but obviously 2 kids, innocent children, were shot. And she probably saw the other day a story in the Sun-Times all about the heat that was applied to the entire membership of that gang. And it looks like the young man that we think, the police department thinks is responsible, is in custody. And I have talked often to the superintendent of the police department that when any gang-related crimes, but also as an innocent 2 girls in this instance, are hurt, they understand there's a new superintendent of the police department on the job with resources we didn't have before. We are not going to have a city where gang members are going to terrorize decent families who are trying to let their kids play, trying to just be children. Now, I'm going to make sure if they want to be in the summer reading program at the library has that. If they want to be at the Safe Haven program at the CPS, we went from 1,000 to 5,000 slots. Those 5,000 kids are safe. Wow. If they live in the neighborhoods where President Preckwinkle and I have a program, there's a lot of other programs. But these streets, they belong to Maria and her children. The streets of the city of Chicago do not belong to the gangs. And that's the job of the police department, to make sure that happens. And there's a new police superintendent, and there'll be a new way of conducting business. I do not believe that the gangs that operate in the city of Chicago own the streets. Those streets are for the families of the city of Chicago.
Well said. And Kevin, I know we've got a lot going on. I want to know what's going on online as well.
Kevin's fingers are burning.
We want to know what kind of questions are coming on online as well.
I was actually just about to win Angry Birds.
The online boomer.
We got a lot of passionate questions both on Facebook and the voting forum about gun control. And it was pertaining to concealed carry. And
on either side or on one side?
What's that? It was a heated conversation.
Okay, well then it's on both sides.
The one that got the most votes was asking about, given the concerns of public safety, wouldn't it be prudent to consider concealed carry permits for citizens?
Well, I don't know who asked it, but I helped President Clinton pass a crime bill, and for 30 years we saw crime in America rise. It was at that point in '94 that you basically started a 15-year decline in crime. Some years are bad, but overall there's been a decline. Now it starts with the basic theory about putting more police on the street, getting kids, guns, and drugs off the street. Guns are part of that strategy. They're integrated. And I, having passed or helped pass the Brady Bill in 1993, the assault weapon ban, fundamentally believe that gun control is part of that crime strategy. Not as it relates to citizens, as it relates to letting, in both those instances, the assault weapons were the guns of choice of gangs, just like Maria's question. The Brady Bill prevented people with criminal records, 5-day waiting period, from getting handguns. Because once you have violated your responsibilities as a citizen, you've lost that right. That's what a 5-day waiting period is about. I believe, and any superintendent, is that gun control is a part of that strategy, and I do not believe in concealed carry. It actually works against everything else we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's talk about CTA safety, okay? This next question says, I ride the L and never see a Chicago police officer. Why doesn't the police department require officers to commute to and from shifts on public transportation?
Well, let me say this, it's obviously the quality of life from a safety standpoint is a concern. We got Maria's question. We have the question on concealed carry. We have now transportation. I'm very proud of that within the short time we've been here. Forrest Claypool already announced some major improvements as it relates to camera on CTA, both entering, exiting. And we'll be installing those in more and more platforms and more L stations throughout the city. The police are, I think if I'm understanding the correct question, they want them to ride it to and from work, is that?
Yes, on public transportation.
Well, I'm not gonna, I'll ask Gary about that. Some people are going some distances, but the basic question whether the work is the way you do it, or more, they're on the platform now. The question is, should they be also on the train more often and frequently during different times? And that's something that the police department and Forrest Claypool at CTA will discuss. I know they have increased their presence.
Especially during the Taste of Chicago as well.
Well, there's the Taste of Chicago, there's Michigan Avenue, but look, as mayor, it's Englewood, which is why when I walked in here, I talked to Commander Crowther as Englewood and talked to him about what is he doing with his entire department, but with the additional resources. He thinks he's making some headway here. One of the things he said to me from the example I gave from 4 weeks ago was, in fact, having a presence at the CTA station. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, he was talking about that from the CTA on the path to school that kids were taking. But in general, whether it's kids, whether people going from there to work, I want them to feel secure, not worried about their safety. They should be thinking about their job. They should be thinking about their studies, not their safety.
Absolutely.
All right, well said. Our next question comes, and it's about recycling. And it comes to us via video, so let's check that out.
Hi, my name is Tracy Williams. I live in the South Shore community. My question is, why are there no large-size recycle bins on the south side of Chicago?
This is one of those, I think it's 29 wards out of the 50 have recycling. And in that 29, not all of the ward is operating as we have as a city that's known for most LEED certified buildings, green roofs. It is an oxymoron given our environmental standards that we do not have a comprehensive recycling plan. And in fact, my chief of staff, the head of streets and sanitation, just yesterday we're meeting on the recycling initiative. Just yesterday, and I'll be awaiting their update, because I do not just the bins. I want the whole city to have a recycling program that is comprehensive enough that when you are as well known as we are in the environmental energy saving space, we can't have this kind of weird thing called half the city has recycling, the other half doesn't. Either we do it or we don't, and if we do it, we should do it right.
Right. Absolutely.
And so we've already been meeting on it and talking about ways to do it.
Well, that's great. Kevin?
I want her to know, and I want Tracy to know, throughout the city. It is not a patchwork of it. Yeah.
Right. Kevin has been chatting online the entire time. I'm sure we're getting lots coming in. So do we have any questions online? Yeah,
and actually pertaining to energy, the question is being brought up right now in the chat, and it was brought up online before. If you had the Clean Power Ordinance on your desk, would you sign it into law?
Wow.
Well, I'm for the Clean Power Ordinance. I would. I think, as I've met with Alderman Moore frequently, who's a sponsor, he was in the last session, I think there are some moves before that, because some people have raised the questions of the legality of that. And what I don't want to do, I hope this makes sense, is I don't want to stand for holy pictures, meaning we pass something, even though in our gut we know it's not legal, and then we kind of give people a false sense of hope when we knew ahead of time. So we have to tighten it up. But there are some steps I think we should do that are prior to that I think apply pressure on the company as it relates to what they're doing as it relates to those two coal plants and the illnesses that affect the nearby community. And he and I have talked about that, and we have some follow-up to do as it relates to coordinating and then implementing.
We've talked public transportation, let's talk bikers. Some of the bikers want to know about bike lanes, but this is coming in through video, so let's take a look at the video clip.
All right, my name's Sam, I'm from Rogers Park, and my question is concerning bike paths. How are you going about improving bike paths, making them more safe, and just making it a more enjoyable experience for cyclists around the city?
I know I'm going to answer.
I'm
I'm glad you said something, because now it's free, because if I brought it up first, it wouldn't be appropriate. I will answer that question when Sam gets me a pair of those glasses.
Tell her to get 3.
You and I go out to Halloween together on that. First of all, I love biking, but as a city, we had, when you can see what New York has done, what DC has done, and Portland, Oregon, we have a lot of catching up to do, and that is what I intend to do. I announced in the campaign we're going to do 25 miles of bike lanes throughout the city every year, so 100 miles. Did I say 25,000? I meant 25. And if I said 25,000, I just gave Gabe Klein a heart attack. 25 miles every year, do 100 in the 4 years of my term. The first 1.25 miles has already been constructed on Kinsey. We have identified the remaining parts of the 25. And I think it looks great. It is great. People can drive, people can park, and people can ride in a protected area. And we will be doing more of it because, first of all, I think it adds to the quality of life. Secondly, I want it to be another means of transportation, because when you look at some of the companies that we want to recruit to grow here and recruit to locate here, part of their workforce wants to do that. Third is changing some of the ordinances as it relates to downtown office buildings in the sense of bike parking and facilities for bikers who come to that office building, not to visit, but to work. So there's a whole approach from the bike lane all the way to the locker that we're going to be discussing, and it is something I want Sam to experience, I want everybody to experience, and to be a metropolitan city with the kind of culture, the kind of nightlife, the kind of employment opportunities. Bikes as a means of transportation, not just exercise transportation, is increasingly a part of the quality of life and opportunity you have to offer, and we're going to do it.
All right. Our next question is about food deserts, and it comes from AJ. Can you explain what plans you have to help Chicago residents living in food deserts? Why have plans focused on bringing Walmarts into the city instead of supporting the growth of local businesses?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's an either-or choice. So to AJ, you said?
AJ, yeah.
Okay. That's good, because I wrote, you could tell you food desert, I wrote ag rather than AJ. I'm in the zone.
You're in there,
okay.
You got the D.
I think that's, I don't agree with AJ on this. Walmart actually wants to put stores in our food desert. I just announced yesterday, Walgreens is going to open 40 stores in food desert areas. I saw what they're doing, fresh fruits and vegetables, with a great pharmacy right there, so you can do both healthcare as well as eating well.
Wow.
And it employs close to 50 people in the neighborhood. Well, it's in that, I don't know if all 50 come from the neighborhood, but it's throughout the food desert areas. Save-A-Lot, which is in the parent is Safeway with Jewel. Save-A-Lot has opened already 5 stores, 4 are doing great. They've committed over the next 4 years, 30 stores in food desert areas. Wow. Now, as part of that, we are going to do comprehensive update of our urban agriculture policy. So we can have locally grown in our city fruits and vegetables, but each of the retailers have agreed as part of the food desert that they will buy locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables and sell it. So the distribution that will then allow us, and those urban agricultures, those locally grown fruits and vegetables here, employ kids here, help supervise and manage here. And so we'll turn an empty lot into an urban agriculture with the outlet through Walgreens, through Walmart, through Save-A-Lot, through Dominic's. I think that's the type of modernization, serving a community, employing locally, and distributing citywide. I'm for all of it, and I don't buy that if Walmart comes into a community or a Walgreens, that I've knocked people out. In fact, retail, as at least on grocery, is a multiplier, now doesn't take away.
Mayor Emanuel, let's talk about the beauty of our city. It was one of the reasons that you wanted to be a mayor of Chicago as well.
It is, yeah.
It's a beautiful
And
city.
yeah, you know, we've got Transformers that has just been filmed here. We've got every Vince Vaughn movie, and of course, tourism in Chicago. We've got restaurants and our beautiful, you know, nightlife. So
Never
let's talk.
has it been said so well as the way you just said it, Nate.
Thank you. I could do one of your commercials if you'd like.
Exactly.
Let's talk boaters, okay?
Yeah.
So we've got a question from Clark, and I wanted to bring that up because it is a good point. What is the chance that a series of kayak docks be built along the river so paddling enthusiasts can patronize downtown restaurants and shops? This is not a critical path for the success of the city, but would offer a unique tourism opportunity, which I do want to know the answer to that as well, because I love dining on the river too, so that's a good idea.
Well, you know, first of all, let me say this. I spoke at President Clinton's CGI conference yesterday, and he has 700 people from around the country all came to Chicago. It's his first conference outside of policy conference outside of New York, and he picked Chicago on the economy, on jobs. Partly what we're doing. That's one. Two, everybody there has been, what an incredibly beautiful city, you know, and they're gone out to different restaurants, and I heard from a number because I went back today for a meeting. In between meetings yesterday, I was at the Sheraton. I said, well, I'm not going to stay in here. It's too gorgeous.
Right.
So I had a free half hour, so I went for a walk along the river. What did I see?
Kayaks.
Two. In that, coming off of the lake into the downtown area. Earlier I said, to another question, I'll be making a major announcement about as it relates to our rivers, as it relates to it being the next recreational frontier for the city. And you and Clark are going to have to wait for that.
Okay, good.
But you'll cue in. But I do think the second part of your question as it relates to restaurants, access on the river, etc. That part of the river is there for walkways. I've met a number of people just sitting there enjoying the day. It was a gorgeous day. I went out last night at a restaurant that had a garden. Now, it wasn't on the river. But that is a great quality of life that we want to keep accentuating because it's a beautiful city and we don't want to hide it from anybody.
Yeah. I know I'd love to pull up at a restaurant and buy kayak and give the valet guy the oar, like put it in a nice spot.
Yeah.
Keep it up front, will you?
And Tony, I got to get out fast. I don't want to be worried about where that guy is. What do you tip a person who pulls your kayak out?
What do you do with a
There's
kayak?
There's a lot of questions between now and my announcement that we want answers to.
We got to work the protocol.
No, but I think it was two folks yesterday, and we have a great river. It hasn't really been paid attention to, and I plan on making that a change.
Okay.
Cool. Along with that, entertaining and restaurants, of course, Chicago is a great music city. The next question is about music. It comes from Rafi. Can you please elaborate?
You know what? Clark couldn't ask that question, but Rafi could ask the question.
Rafi could ask the question. He wants to know. He says, hey, can you elaborate on your vision for the Uptown neighborhood and how you plan to implement the Music Entertainment District designation, incorporating the historic theaters? What are the ways in which the community could get involved?
Rafi, first of all, I can't thank him enough for this question, but I'm glad that a lot of people voted on that. We have, outside of New York and LA, we in Chicago generate an economic activity about $1 billion in the music area, a little north of it, third largest anywhere in the country. And just since being back, I went to see Adele. Over at the Riv.
I'm jealous. It was sold out. I should have called you.
I'm so sorry. Because Don't came with me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you didn't get the invite. Sorry. Number two, I also saw one of the great highlights of being mayor in the first 42 days. At the Park West, I introduced Lucinda Williams.
Wow.
And listened to her and her, some of her new material on her album. So I am a big music buff and love music. It's a great part of the city, but as a personal interest. Now, I have seen many shows. I saw David Gray when he first started, broke off from David Matthews at the Riv. I saw the Rolling Stones at the Aragon. Wow. I've been to stuff at the Vic, Park West, just the other day. Well, I don't want to go through all, Double Door. I believe, if you know how, like the theater district, why does it take off? It's great access on transportation, and you've seen the nightlife develop in downtown that never existed because of the theater district. We have, and it's not this area versus all the other clubs that are around the entire city, music venues. But we have something special that has never really been developed. It's just going to sit there. Now, I don't want to lose the intrinsic value by developing. But one asset, unrelated, is you have a transportation capacity, both bus and CTA, mass transit. So that makes a capacity that you can actually get to people there. You have these historic sites that have had unbelievable histories just in and of themselves. And my view is we should make a uptown music district in that area that allows both what they're doing at the Uptown Theater, the Riv, the Aragon, that could spark not just those three, but all the economic growth like the theater district downtown. We should have obviously stuff on the south side. They have great historical sites as it relates to music as well. It's not only one. But on this one, in this area, you know, downstairs, underneath, is the old walkway that Al Capone used to use. Wow. And nobody, I mean, that he could then go and use. And that hasn't even been developed. Nina, you need to get out, man. You didn't go to Adele with us. You don't know.
I mean, where are these invitations?
Okay, but I mean, so that was the only idea, and it would take a natural strength and accentuate it, and continue to make Chicago the great music destination it is for the tourism, for the people to visit. You could, hopefully, maybe I'll even dig a river, you can kayak and go listen to music.
I want in on these plans.
Okay.
Let's take it over to Kevin online.
Okay.
What you got coming in there, Kevin?
A few minutes ago we had a bit of a chat going on around government contracts. And it's about how we can reform government contracts and how the public can see how government money and alderman money is being spent.
Well, we have done a number of things as it relates. Let me give you one example. Everybody who works in city government and in the is now their salaries online. It is online. I'm working towards a goal that that's going to happen now throughout the sister agencies. You'll see people's salaries. Two, as it relates to each agency, is doing a pretty comprehensive dashboard. So you can see one of the things I wanted. This is slightly a little off of the direct part of the question. I want to constantly measure time in line or time online. That is, how long does it take you to get a permit? And if it took 60 days, what are we doing next year to get it to 45 or 30? And we can measure things by money we spend or the time in line for the customer, so we can keep shortening it and making it more efficient and more customer friendly. But I also want to use it so people know how, is that project on time, schedule-wise and dollar-wise? Who are the contractors related to that? How's it going? And so people can feel they can get a hold of their governments that sometimes feel so overwhelming, so amorphous to them, making the process transparent to them, not just on money, but on schedule, I think is an essential part of building trust between the public we serve and the people that are there to be shepherding it from a public trust.
So Shelley has a question about parents and charters. How will you start mandating parents, adults of CPS students to take responsibility for their students' education, not only the teachers? As congressman, you had great visions for real neighborhood schools. Now you're so pro-charter. Why the change?
Well, you know what? There is no change. Shelley may be talking about what I did as a congressman, 3 schools. One is Nettlehurst. The other one was Coonley that got it set up, and then the Chicago Teaching Academy. I am pro-charter just so parents have a choice. The very thing that Shelley asked about, if parents want that, I want that choice available. They don't want it, they don't have to, that's their choice. 2, I want other choices. I want turnaround schools of excellence, which is why I've also announced we're going to double the teaching academies here in the city, which no other city has in the country. And they work successfully. The biggest gain in test scores among students were kids at the Chicago Teaching Academy schools. And I've been a big advocate of it. The chair of the Chicago Public Schools used to be the chair of the Chicago Teaching Academy, AUSL program. I want all those options available to parents. Now the real question, which I 100% agree with Shelley about. We have good teachers. Some are great, really working in really tough situations. very challenging environments. Those teachers cannot achieve what they need to achieve without parents involved. If a parent chooses to send a kid to a charter, that's probably a parent involved in the education. As parents deciding to send a kid also to a neighborhood school doesn't mean they're not involved. But a lot of parents don't pick up report cards.
Yeah.
And let me say this, if you're not picking up a report card, you think your kid's not picking up on that signal?
Right.
If you don't go to parent-teacher conference and come home and say, you know, Nina, your math teacher, and Tony, your English teacher, they wouldn't let us, Kevin, in a classroom, you know, said this or that. If you don't report to your kid about what you've seen and heard, the kids are smart. They'll pick up on that. And a teacher can do X amount. Where is the parent on reading? Where is the parent on report card? Where is the parent on a host of things they have to do to stay involved in their kids' education? And I've said this and it's become cliche in the campaign, but I believe it. As a parent, I believe this, not as a mayor. The most important door a child walks through as it relates to their education and understanding the importance is the front door of that house.
Wow.
It is not the school. Now, a lot of parents are dropping the kids off or getting them to school, and they think they're absolved.
Right.
That's wrong. Okay, and if that attitude is the attitude of the parent or parents, there's nothing the teacher or the principal can do. Though that means we've only got two legs of the stool working, and the most important leg, that's the foundation, ain't working. So we've done some things. A, parents now will get the same report card on the school's performance that the principal gets. They're going to get that. They're going to get a report card on their school.
Wow. Nice.
And so they'll know what's going on. And they'll have access to that information, and they'll know how the school is. Are they on course? What are the test scores? Not just your job. What's the average for the school? And I need to get, like the earlier question about money or how we're spending it, contracts, I need to get parents the information a principal has so they can hold the CEO of the school, the principal, and the workers in that operation, that franchise, i.e. the school, hold them accountable to get the results. Okay, that's what I want. That's one way of getting parents involved. I also want to come up with one of the reasons I developed a race to the idea of a race to the top is schools. Let's say you go from 60% of your parents pick up the report card. Next year you go to 85. Well, why aren't we financially rewarding those that are succeeding? And what is what you did working? How do we take it over to this school or that school? Now, I was with J.C. Bazar, the head of the public schools here in Chicago. We did an announcement with UNO. They run 9 charters. They have a 7 to 7.5 hour day. They're now going to start in August 1st. 100% attendance to parent-teacher conference is mandated, and 100% attendance in picking up the report card. Wow. Those children, they know what their parents think of an education.
We got time for one final question, and let me just say this has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure everybody wants to know this final question. Can we expect more forums like this one?
Oh, well, absolutely. First of all, I'm going to be very interested just as, I know we have what? We had over 500 questions. We had over 8,600 votes on those questions. I love to see what the attendance is here. I love the fact also, I'll be honest, no other mayor has done this. You have my commitment to doing it and trying to do it on a regular basis. I think it's essential. I'm glad the constituents loved it. Most importantly, I got something out of it. And it makes me better and sharper at doing my job and knowing I got 4 questions on crime, from gangs to police to Ed Burke's 4 police officers. I got questions on the economy and jobs, transportation. Kevin and I, you're not part of this, are going to open a kayaking business together. But about the rivers, the quality of life, the restaurants, and it's important for me not lose touch. You know, a lot of people like to run down, I don't mean to get philosophical, run down politics or campaigns. I loved going to the L stops. You heard things, you listen, and you learn. And in this part, while I'm giving answers, I hope people are learning something. I'm learning a lot.
I learned a lot about you, and I'm sure Tony did too. So Mayor Emanuel, I want to thank you for allowing us to take part in your very first live Facebook town hall. Today's town hall was produced here at the studios at WGCI at Kennedy King College, one of the city colleges of Chicago. And special thanks to my co-host, Tony Sculfield, and to the Smart Communities program that organized the neighborhood viewing events. Most importantly, thanks to all of you who sent in your questions and gathered to watch across all of Chicago. Until next time, find us on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks, buddy.